Most of the world lies sheltered from the existence of magic, encountering it only as it victimizes them. They huddle in their churches for comfort and trade their freedom and dignity to a ruler as they beg for protection, all for the fear of the supernatural which they do not and cannot understand.
Hello. On today's episode of Lamentations of the Flame Princess, I'm going to explore the magic user. Magic users, magic users, magic users. That's what they were called in the old days. Not wizards, not sorcerers, warlocks, just magic users. The idea was that you could skin it. If you wanted your magic user to be a traditional, book-carrying, academic, wizardly sort, great. The mechanics are the mechanics, and we'll get into that in a second. But you can imagine your magic user looking, acting, being whatever you want them to be. You can even come up with like a creative story for your character and how they got into magic and their awakening and all that other stuff. But basically they cast spells. Now in this game there's a lot of things that you won't find in other modern fantasy editions, right? So magic users are squishy, they could be killed easily, but they are hardcore, and if you have a magic user that lives to higher levels, they do not fuck around. Magic users choose a different path. Instead of cowering away from the darkness, they revel in it. They see the forces of magic as a new frontier to explore, a new tool for the attainment of power and knowledge. If it blackens the soul to equal that of any devil, it is but a small price to pay. Magic users can cast spells from the Magic User spell list. Full details of Magic User magical abilities are detailed in the Magic section. Okay, so what are they good at? They're good at saving throws and casting spells. They are not good at hit points. Wow. They are not going to be your frontline people. Sorry to disappoint you. Not going to happen. Like if somebody farts too loudly, a magic user is going to die. So really, let's take a look at magic users and what are they good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. Wow. No, they're awesome. But they're squishy. And by squishy, if you don't know what that term is in gaming, it means that they can be killed easily. Why make a magic user, Bill? Well, because you want a well-balanced party, dumbass. And because they have cool spells. Now, as I said, you're not going to find them to be the blasters of modern games. In D&D, you can make a sorcerer who's just, shooting spells. This isn't a video game. Magic users are a bit more serious in this game, and they require more prep. They require more care and thinking and strategery. Hearken well, the story of Fat Neil. Magic is art, not science. Each work of magic, from casting a spell to writing a scroll to creating a potion, is something that must be done from scratch each time. Merely replicating what has already been done will never work. A spell is a fairly standardized effect that has been repeatedly created by many magic users. While every magic user must use a spellbook to store his magical knowledge, mortal brains are not structurally designed to hold this information. There is no set formula for any particular spell. Take the spell Magic Missile, for instance. It is a very common spell, especially for traveling and adventuring magic users, but if you looked at the spellbooks of 100 magic users, which all contain Magic Missile, no notation of the spell would look the same. Each spell notation is a combination of reference notes, philosophical debate against the universe, and gibberish scribbling, all of which serves one purpose: to trigger a dream state understanding within the magic user's mind. Nothing contained in a spellbook is a how-to guide, so much as an individual recipe for self-induced hypnosis. I feel like that paragraph is one of the most important statements that I've read in the last 20 years. Now, are you calling bullshit on me? Perhaps. I think that summarizes the understanding of arcane magic and how it's individualized. And that's a really important element. it's important for the player of a magic user to understand that, number one. It's important for that player to understand and immerse themselves in the role-playing of a wizard. It's going to be a crucial part of you effectively role-playing your wizard, for the role-playing part of it. Number three, for the strategic play part of it. Understanding that you could have a vast spell book, you can have scrolls, you can have all these different things, but that in the end, it's about your character as an individual, your individual magic user, and their understanding of magic. So, I think that's really important. It's deep. Beginning spells. At the start of play, every magic user's spell book contains read magic plus 3 other randomly determined first level spells. An elf begins play with only read magic in the spell book. Upon attaining a new level, a magic user can add 1 random spell to his book free of charge from his choice of spell levels he is already able to cast, but the time for researching or transcribing the spell remains as standard. Why randomly? Okay, let's think about this. This game is heavily influenced by early editions of D&D. Randomly is a thing because it makes you think creatively. Because if you get quote-unquote crappy spells, you as a player now have to think about how your character can creatively take advantage of that. Now as a DM, running a game like this where a magic user is made, a magic user is a risk as it is, right? Because they're so squishy. And now you've just made it more risky by making their spells randomly chosen. So they could get a crappy hand. But what do we do in life when we have a crappy hand? Do we just give up? No. We creatively think about how we use that crappy hand. I mean, hell, maybe you even think about bluffing your way through as a magic user. Maybe your general appearance is so badass and you roleplay your character as a badass wizard that other people fear you even though they don't know that you don't wield powerful magics.
I'm a wizard, mind you. This place is kept by powerful gods and spirits of kings. On my flesh, and you will have to deal with the dead.
Can you summon demons, wizard?
Yes! If I strike at you, I would summon a demon more ferocious than all in hell.
Think about that. Wrap that up and smoke it. A magic user must rest for 6 continuous hours before preparing spells. After resting, the magic user must study using a spell book for a number of hours equal to the highest level's spell being prepared. This process is sometimes called memorizing spells. So that is precisely the same mechanic as clerics, which I think is fair. Good. Good on you, James Raggi. Spells remain in memory until they are cast, and once they are cast, they fade from the mind like a dream upon waking. However, the same spell can be prepared multiple times. The magic user's spell chart gives the maximum number of spells that can be memorized at each level, and the magic user can never have more than this number prepared at one time. Spells simply cannot be simply dismissed from the mind. They must be cast to clear the spell slot. So that is different from the cleric. A cleric can just decide not to cast it. Magic users have to cast the spell to remove the slot, which is, I think, kind of fun, actually. Because you could be in a position where they're like, fuck, what am I going to do? I got to clear this spell, right? And they have some stupid spell, or maybe a spell that like would cause a major like upheaval or a distraction. And you could have fun with that. A clever DM could have fun with that. Reversible spells are effectively 2 different spells, the normal and the reversed. They must be researched, transcribed, and prepared as different spells, just like the clerics. A magic user can only safely prepare spells once every 24 hours. The mind simply cannot handle any more, like clerics. Magic users can only prepare spells which are written in their spell books. See, so there's that difference. The first level cleric can access all of the first level cleric spells and then decide which ones they're preparing The magic user is much more restricted. Why? Why do the spells get randomized? Why are they much more restricted? Is it because they're more powerful? Maybe. Spell scrolls. Scrolls are magical items which allow a magic user to cast a spell without prior memorization, even if the spell is of a higher level than the magic user is able to cast. A magic user must cast Read Magic in order to read a scroll, even to identify the spells contained on it. But at any point thereafter, the spell can be cast from a scroll. A scroll can have multiple spells on it, but only one spell can be cast at a time. Casting a spell from a scroll erases it from the scroll. Oh, that's kind of badass. You could have a scroll that's really long and have like 3 spells on it. And then like they cast the middle one, and so there's like a spell on the top and then a blank space in the bottom one, and then eventually they cast it and it's just empty. That's kind of cool. I dig that. A character must hold the scroll with both hands in order to read and use it, and if in combat, it takes the caster an entire action to use, just like casting a normal spell. All spells cast from scrolls use the level of the reader, not the writer, to determine the effects of the spell. Oh, that is also a very subtle but badass thing. Because if you get some dope scroll, and you use your Read Magic on it, and it's got an awesome kick-ass higher level spell, you might not want to cast it. You might want to save that shit until you're higher level. Writing a scroll. Any magic user can create a spell scroll for any spell in his spellbook. The process costs 50 silver pieces per day. Good Lord. Is that a lot? I don't know. I don't really know the economy of Lamentations yet. It sounds expensive. Even though the scroll is essentially a one-use formula for a spell, each must still be individually researched and crafted and not mass-produced. Indeed, making a copy of a spell scroll will not imbue the copy with magical energy, or at the referee's discretion, perhaps making the copy would dissipate all magical energy from the original as well. Okay, so you can only make spells from scrolls from the spells that you have in your book. You can't go from a scroll to another scroll. From a scroll to a spell book. If a magic user finds a spell scroll containing a spell not already in the spell book, see, this is what I was thinking. He can instead transcribe the spell on the scroll into his spell book. This will remove the spell from the scroll. The process costs 20 silver pieces per day. But the advantage there is that now that new spell is in your spell book. So this is so nostalgic for me because it reminds me of the value of a spell book. In the old days, like a spell book was your fucking grail, man. Like a wizard who lost his spellbook was just fucked. You might as well just jump off a cliff because your spellbook had so much inherent power. Like it was so valuable. Spellbooks are large, bulky things and valuable at that. While a magic user can freely use any spellbook upon which he's cast Read Magic, sometimes a magic user may want to consolidate spellbooks or create new ones. This process is similar to writing scrolls, but does not erase the spell from the original source. The process costs 10 silver pieces per day. So I could see in a game where like after an adventure, you know, during the downtime, you've amassed a bunch of treasure, like my wizard would totally just be like making compendiums, just blowing through all of his earnings from the adventure doing that. Researching a spell. If a magic user wishes to add a spell to a spellbook without a prior reference to the spell from a scroll or another spellbook, there's more intensive research to be done. That makes sense, right? It's like trying to figure out how to do something when you have no reference for it. You got to put the time in and research it. Totally love that. A magic user can research spells of a higher level than he's able to cast and add them to his spellbook, but he may never prepare such spells. He can, however, write them on scrolls. A player can invent totally new spells for his character to research. The player must first write the spell in the format of the other spells in the spell lists. The referee must approve the spell and should revise the spell for the player in advance of any research. Sometimes this will merely involve altering the spell level. If successful, the character now has a spell that no other character has in the game. That is dope. Researching, creating a new spell that doesn't exist. So for all you people who are like a little reticent about diving into a game that's hard like this, and you're like, but I miss all the spells from 5e. You could conceivably take a spell from 5e and have your magic user research the time and maybe, you know, work that out. And now you have a new spell. So quit being a fucking baby and just be creative. For spells that are on the standard spell list, the process costs 25 silver pieces per day. For wholly original spells, the process costs 30 per day. Note, this is in italics, so it must be important. There are many sources of new spells found in published supplements and online sources. It will be up to the referee to decide whether researching these spells would count as being on a standard spell list or not. The referee also has the right to change the listed level of the spell as suits the campaign, change other details, or even disallow a spell entirely. That is important. Do you know why? Because much like the old games, the DM is God. Creating a potion. Okay, this is cool too. So here's another thing. Spells which affect a person can, for all intents and purposes, be made into liquid form so that the imbiber gains the benefit of the spell. The maker of the potion must be able to cast the spell being turned into a potion. If a cleric assists the magic user, a potion capturing the essence of any of the healing spells, cure wounds or cure disease, can be made, though the cleric must be of high enough level to cast the spell in question. The process to make a potion costs 50 silver pieces per day. That is awesome. That's fantastic. Collaborated magic crafting. Ooh. Creating a staff or wand, staves or wands, can be used to hold magical power for later use. These are the steps to creating a staff or wand. Determine what spells the item will contain, enter the original charges, recharging a staff or wand. Time of magical activities is next. I'm not going to go through all this shit, but there's charts in here about all that stuff, about casting the spells, libraries and laboratories that help you do the things that you need to do. And then magic users have spell lists. Now, this video would be like 4.5 hours long if I went through all that shit, so I'm just going to sum up. The magic user spell lists are very much influenced by early versions of like D&D. However, there are some spells in here, and people have discuss them in other videos, so I'm not going to spend time doing that, but read the spell summon. It is, I think, really part of the tapestry of this game. The idea that a wizard can do a summoning at first level, wielding very little power, and the process for the summoning is beautifully detailed. The results of which are beautifully detailed, that you can run a whole campaign where every adventure is just, let's see what happens when the wizard does a summon. Like, that's a real thing. And the outcome of those summonings, and the ability for the magic user to control or guide and direct that which has been summoned to do its bidding and dominate it. All of that factor in. And the magic user's increasing level of power also factor in. It's really cool. And the flavor of the magic user spells and how they're done is also just so, for me it's nostalgic. For anybody new to a game like this, it is very different from modern editions of D&D. So check it out for yourself. For me, for this character that I made, I got an 11 intelligence, which isn't horrible, but it's not really great enough to be a good magic user. So on the one hand, as I'm learning about this game, I'm glad that I was able to review the magic user with you today. And certainly, I ask you to share your own thoughts about magic users in Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Whether it's a funny story about a magic user, or maybe your top magic user spell picks, share them in the comments below so that other people watching this video who are new to the game could get some insights from all of y'all who are part of the community. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace out and heavy metal.